There are places in this world where life seems impossible. Villages balanced above restless water, carved into ancient rock hidden on frozen ground, or clinging to cliffs so steep they barely look real. In these places, survival is not comfort, safety, or routine. It is a daily test of strength, courage, and endurance. And yet, people still call them home. They raise children there. They work there. They return there again and again, no matter the danger. From the sea to the mountains, these are the world's most dangerous villages. Some are scary, which you won't believe they exist at all. Bajau Sea Nomads. Perhaps there is no better place to begin than with people who do not just live near the sea, but seem to live inside it. In parts of Malaysia and the southern Philippines, the Bajau Sea Nomad villages rise directly above the water on thin wooden stilts. From a distance, they look almost unreal, like small islands built by hand. There are no solid roads, no firm ground, and none of the safety most villages are built on. Just narrow walkways, weathered wooden homes, and the sea moving beneath everything. For generations, the Bajau were known as sea nomads, spending much of their lives on wooden boats and travelling with the rhythm of the ocean. Over time, some communities began building permanent houses above shallow seabeds, creating villages that depend almost entirely on water. Here, the sea is not just part of the view. It is the road, the kitchen, the workplace, and in many ways the foundation of life itself. But life is far from easy. Food and income come mainly from fishing, and many Bajau divers go to remarkable depths just to find what they need. Some descend more than 65 feet below the surface, relying on breath balance and experience in waters that can quickly turn dangerous. For them, the ocean can provide everything, but it never promises safety. Children in these villages grow up learning to balance on boats almost as soon as they can walk. They understand currents, tides, and changing weather long before they fully understand the outside world. What would seem extreme to most people is simply normal life here. But life above the sea is always fragile. A storm can tear through homes in hours. Shifting waters can affect fishing grounds and food supply. And beyond nature, politics and changing control over sea territory have forced some Bajau communities to move, reminding them that even their home waters are never fully secure. That is what makes these villages so extraordinary. They stand in a place where most people would struggle to stay for even a single day. Yet, the Bajau have built an entire way of life there. Not beside the sea, but above it. Not protected from danger, but living with it every single day. Makoko. Bajau villages feel impossible because they float above the sea. Then Makoko feels even harder to believe because of its sheer scale. On the edge of Lagos, Nigeria, Makoko rises above the water on thousands of wooden stilts, forming a vast settlement where daily life takes place without the support of solid ground. From above, it looks like a wooden maze spreading across the lagoon. Small houses stand close together. Narrow waterways cut through the settlement like streets. Boats move between homes the way cars move through a city. And everywhere the water remains just below the floorboards. What makes Makoko so striking is not only where it stands, but how many people live there. This is not a tiny floating village hidden in some remote corner of the world. It is a dense and crowded community, often described as home to tens of thousands, and possibly far more. That means an enormous number of people depend on homes' walkways and platforms built over shallow water with wood as the main support. There are no normal roads running through the heart of the settlement. Instead, canoes and small wooden boats carry children to school workers to market, and families from one part of the community to another. Water is not a barrier here. It is the main route through life. Every trip, every delivery, every movement depends on it. The houses themselves are simple and exposed. Many are built from wood, sheet metal, and other lightweight materials designed more for survival than comfort. They stand close together with little separation between one structure and the next. When wind, rain, or changing water conditions strike, the entire environment can feel unstable. Nothing about Makoko suggests permanence in the way most cities do. And yet, people continue to live, work trade, and raise families here every day. That is what makes Makoko so unforgettable. It feels like a city that should not be standing a place suspended between land and water without fully belonging to either one. It is crowded, fragile, and constantly exposed to the movement of the lagoon beneath it. But for the people who live there, this is not some impossible fantasy. It is home. A home built not on certainty, but on balance adaptation, and the determination to keep going in a place where the ground itself never truly exists. Oymyakon. In the far northeast of Russia, Oymyakon is one of the coldest permanently inhabited places on Earth. This is not the kind of cold most people imagine when they think of winter. It is a level of cold that changes how homes are built, how vehicles are used, how food is stored, and how people move through daily life. In Oymyakon, the environment does not simply feel harsh, it controls everything. The village stands on deep permafrost, where the ground remains frozen for most of the year. Because of that, buildings cannot be treated the way they would be in ordinary towns. Homes are often raised or specially supported to deal with the shifting surface above the frozen earth. Even basic infrastructure becomes more difficult when the land itself is locked in ice. The cold also affects every practical detail of survival. Cars cannot be left unused for too long because engines may fail in extreme temperatures. Machines struggle. Batteries drain quickly. Metal wood and human skin all react badly to the air. Stepping outside is not a simple part of the day. It is something people must prepare for. Every trip, even a short one, means facing a climate that can turn dangerous in minutes. Because the ground stays frozen and the growing season is so limited, farming is nearly impossible. That means food has never come easily here. For generations, people have relied more on animal products and preserved foods than on crops. Life in Oymyakon has always depended on adaptation, not abundance. And yet, the village continues. Families still live there. Children still go to school. Daily routines still exist in a place where the cold seems strong enough to erase normal life altogether. That is what makes Oymyakon so striking. It is not dramatic in the same way as a cliffside village or a settlement above water. Its danger is quieter, but just as real. It lives in the air, in the ground, and in the long winter that never seems to loosen its grip. Oymyakon feels like the edge of what human life can bear. It is a place where comfort disappears, where nature strips life down to its most basic needs, and where survival depends on respect for a climate that is stronger than almost anything people can build against it. La Rinconada. La Rinconada sits at an elevation so extreme that even standing still can feel like work. Perched more than 16,000 feet above sea level, it is one of the highest permanent settlements on Earth. The air here is thin, the cold is constant, and the landscape feels stripped down to rock ice mud and sky. Nothing about it suggests an easy place to live. The town spreads across a bleak mountainside below a glacier where rows of rough buildings crowd together in harsh conditions. Most structures look temporary, built for function rather than comfort, as though the settlement appeared out of necessity and never had the chance to become anything more stable. The streets are uneven. The ground is frozen or muddy for much of the year, and the entire place feels exposed to both altitude and weather. What draws people here is gold. La Rinconada exists because of mining, and that single fact shapes the entire town. People come to work in the surrounding mines hoping to earn something from the mountain, despite the brutal environment. But survival here is not only about labor. It is also about enduring a place where the human body is under pressure every hour of the day. At this altitude, oxygen levels are far lower than at sea level, which means breathing takes more effort, movement feels heavier, and ordinary tasks become exhausting much faster. That physical strain gives La Rinconada its real sense of danger. The town does not need cliffs or crashing waves to feel extreme. Its threat is built into the altitude itself. The body is never allowed to forget where it is. Every cold morning, every uphill step, and every load carried through the settlement reminds people that they are living close to the limits of what human beings can tolerate. And yet, the town remains full of life. People still work, trade, eat, sleep, and raise families in a place that seems more suited to survival stories than everyday routine. That is what makes La Rinconada so hard to believe. It is not just a remote mining town in the mountains. It is a community suspended near the physical edge of human endurance, where people keep going in conditions that most would struggle to face for even a single day. Trunyan. On the edge of Lake Batur in Bali, Trunyan feels like a place where nature and death sit side by side in plain view. The village lies within a volcanic landscape surrounded by steep crater walls, dark water, and rough mountain terrain. Even before you learn anything about its traditions, the setting already feels isolated and unusual. However, what truly sets Trunyan apart is the way it treats the dead. Here, the dead are not buried underground, and they are not cremated in the way many people would expect in Bali. Instead, certain bodies are placed above the ground in simple bamboo frames and left to decompose in the open air. That single practice is enough to make Trunyan feel almost unbelievable. Yet, in this village, it is not a legend or a story made for visitors. It is part of a real and lasting tradition. The burial ground itself adds to the power of the place. It sits close to the lake under the presence of a sacred tree known as Taru Menyan. According to local belief, the tree releases a natural fragrance that helps soften the smell of decomposition. As a result, the entire site carries an eerie calm rather than the chaos people might expect. Still, there is nothing ordinary about it. The open air remains the quiet water, and the volcanic surroundings combine to create a landscape that feels deeply sacred, but also unsettling. Trunyan is dangerous in a quieter way than a cliff village or a frozen settlement. The danger here comes from its setting and its atmosphere. It exists inside a harsh volcanic basin, where the land feels closed in and severe. At the same time, the village asks people to live with a much more visible relationship to death than most communities ever would. That is what makes Trunyan so unforgettable. It is not simply a remote village with an unusual ritual. It is a place where belief, geography, and mortality are woven tightly together. Surrounded by crater walls and lake water, the village stands in a setting that already feels extreme. Then, within that extreme landscape, it preserves a tradition that makes it one of the most difficult places in the world to forget. Inle floating villages. In Inle floating villages, water is not just part of the environment. It is the environment. Spread across the surface of a vast highland lake, these villages rest on wooden stilts, driven into the lakebed with narrow walkways and small docks linking one home to another. From a distance, the settlement seems to hover above the waterlight and fragile, as if it could drift away at any moment. Yet this is not a temporary camp or a seasonal refuge. It is a real and permanent community where families have lived for generations. What makes Inle so unusual is the way life here has been built entirely around the lake. There are no ordinary streets cutting through the village. Instead, boats glide past front doors, beneath wooden platforms and between clusters of homes. Every part of daily life depends on the water. People travel by boat, carry goods by boat, and fish by boat. Even the rhythm of the village feels slower and quieter, shaped by the movement of the lake itself. One of the most striking sights here is the rowing style of the Inle people. Standing at the back of a narrow wooden boat, they wrap one leg around the paddle and row with a smooth circular motion. It looks graceful, almost impossible, but it developed for a practical reason. By standing, they can see over the reeds and floating vegetation, guiding their boats more clearly through the lake. Inle is also known for its floating gardens, long strips of vegetation and lake mud tied together and anchored with bamboo poles. These gardens turn the lake into farmland, allowing people to grow crops directly on the water. It is a clever solution, but it also shows how little solid ground is available in this world. That is what makes the floating villages of Inle Lake so remarkable. They are not simply houses standing above water. They are a complete human settlement built in a place where land barely plays a role at all. Everything here, from transport to farming to the shape of the homes themselves, has been adapted to a surface that never truly stays still. And yet, against all logic, people have made it feel not only livable, but lasting. Kandovan. After villages built above water, Kandovan feels like a completely different kind of impossibility. Instead of floating on a lake or standing on stilts above the sea, this village in northwestern Iran is carved directly into ancient volcanic rock. At first sight, Kandovan hardly looks like a village at all. The landscape is filled with tall cone-shaped rock formations rising from the earth like giant stone towers. They seem more like something nature created for a fantasy film than a place where families would actually live. Yet, inside these rocky forms are real homes with doors, windows, stairways, and rooms cut deep into the stone. What makes Kandovan so remarkable is that people did not build around the mountain. They built into it. Over many generations, residents carved living spaces into the hardened volcanic ash and lava, turning raw geological formations into a permanent settlement. Instead of spreading outward across flat land, the village grows inward with homes shaped by the rock itself. That gives Kandovan a very different feeling from any ordinary village. The walls are not made of bricks or wood. They are the mountain. Every passage room and opening depends on the natural form of the stone. Because of that, each home looks slightly different, shaped not by a standard design, but by the curves and thickness of the rock around it. The setting also explains why this place has lasted for so long. The porous volcanic stone helps keep the interior cool in summer and warmer in winter, making the homes naturally suited to the harsh climate. What once came from fire and eruption has become a place of shelter and continuity. Still, Kandovan carries a quiet sense of danger. These homes exist inside formations created by ancient violence, and their survival depends on the strength of the rock that holds them together. Wind, weather, and erosion never fully stop. That is what makes Kandovan so unforgettable. It is not just a village beside a mountain. It is a village inside one. A place where people took a landscape shaped by volcanic force and turned it into a home, proving that even stone can become part of human survival. Atule'er. This village in southwestern China feels even more extreme because for years simply getting in or out of the village meant climbing what looked like a ladder to the sky. Set high on a steep mountainside, Atule'er stands in a place where the land offers almost no mercy. The village is perched above a deep valley surrounded by hard rock-sharp drops and narrow strips of usable ground. From below, the houses seem tiny against the cliff, as if they were placed there by mistake. But this is not a viewpoint or a temporary camp. It is a real village where people built homes, raised families, and lived with danger as part of everyday life. What made Atule'er famous was its old access route. Before safer improvements were added, villagers had to climb a long series of bamboo ladders attached to the cliff face. The climb was steep, exposed and exhausting. In some places, the path rose almost straight upward. For the people who lived there, that was not a challenge for special occasions. It was the road home. Children used it to get to school. Adults used it to carry food supplies and building materials. Every trip meant trusting a path that left almost no room for error. That single detail tells you everything about the village. Atule'er is not dangerous because of one dramatic photograph. It is dangerous because the terrain shaped every part of life. Homes were built close to the cliff edge. Small fields clung to the slope wherever a little soil could be found. Transport was slow, physical, and difficult. Nothing arrived easily, and nothing left without effort. Later, steel stairs were installed to replace much of the old bamboo route, making the journey safer than before. However, the location itself has not changed. The village still sits on a mountainside that feels almost impossible for permanent settlement. The cliff is still there. The height is still there. The isolation is still there. That is what makes Atule'er so unforgettable. It is a village that forces you to rethink what a road, a home, and a normal day can mean. In most places, danger is something people try to avoid. Here, for a long time, it was built right into the path between the village and the rest of the world. Tana Toraja. In the highlands of South Sulawesi, Indonesia, Tana Toraja is a place where dramatic mountains, steep valleys and burial cliffs shape the entire landscape. At first glance, it looks beautiful and remote, with traditional Tongkonan houses rising above the ground on wooden supports and facing the hills around them. However, the deeper you look, the more unusual the region becomes. Tana Toraja is not only a place where people live among difficult terrain, it is also a place where death remains visibly present in everyday life. That is what makes it so striking. In many parts of the world, death is hidden away from daily routine. In Tana Toraja, by contrast, it stays close to the community. Funeral traditions here are deeply important, and because of that, a person who has died is not always buried immediately. Instead, the body may remain inside the family home for months or even years, until relatives are able to prepare a proper ceremony. As a result, the boundary between ordinary life and mourning feels very different here. Meanwhile, the burial sites themselves make the landscape even more unforgettable. In several parts of Tana Toraja, coffins are placed high on rocky cliffs, while carved wooden figures known as tau stand facing the valley below. These cliffside graves are not only sacred, they are also dangerous because the terrain is steep, exposed, and difficult to access. In other words, even burial in this region is tied to height, stone, and risk. The setting adds even more power to that feeling. The region is mountainous rugged and spread across a wide area of highland terrain. Villages sit between slopes, rice fields and rock walls, which means the living and the dead share the same dramatic environment. Therefore, the entire region seems shaped by both survival and ritual at once. That is why Tana Toraja belongs on this list. It is not dangerous in the same way as a frozen village or a cliffside settlement. Instead, its power comes from the way harsh geography and ancient funeral traditions exist side by side. Tana Toraja feels sacred, beautiful, and unsettling all at once, which is exactly what makes it so unforgettable. Ushguli. High in the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, Ushguli stands in a landscape that feels built for isolation. The village sits more than 7,000 feet above sea level, surrounded by steep slopes, narrow valleys, and heavy snow that can cut it off from the outside world. For much of the year, the mountains do not simply frame the village, they trap it. At first glance, Ushguli looks like a place left behind by time. Stone houses sit low against the rugged terrain, and above them rise tall defensive towers that have watched over the village for centuries. Many of these towers were built between the 9th and 12th centuries, giving Ushguli the appearance of a medieval stronghold rather than an ordinary mountain settlement. They were not built for beauty, they were built for survival. That is one of the most striking things about Ushguli. Every part of it reflects the demands of a dangerous environment. The houses stand close together with thick walls designed to endure the cold and withstand the mountain climate. The towers gave families protection during times of conflict, but they also reveal how vulnerable life was in such an isolated place. In a village like this, danger did not come from only one source. It came from weather geography and human tension all at once. The natural setting only adds to that sense of hardship. Snowfall can be severe, and landslides have long threatened the area. Roads in and out are limited, and in the past, entire seasons could pass with the village nearly cut off from the rest of the country. Daily life had to continue anyway. People farmed, raised animals, stored food, and endured long winters in a place where the mountains often made escape impossible. Yet Ushguli has survived for centuries. That endurance is what makes it so remarkable. This is not just a historic village in a beautiful setting. It is a community that learned how to exist in one of the harshest inhabited landscapes in Europe. The towers, the stone homes, the tight village layout, all of it reflects a long history of adapting to danger rather than fleeing from it. Ushguli feels distant, exposed, and almost unreal, but that is exactly why it belongs on this list. It is a place where human life has been held high in the mountains, surrounded by cold silence, and the constant reminder that nature still sets the rules. Sagada. In the mountain region of northern Luzon in the Philippines, Sagada is known for one of the most haunting burial traditions in the world. Here, along steep limestone cliffs, wooden coffins hang high above the ground, fixed directly into the rock. At first, the sight feels almost unreal. The cliffs are already sharp, tall, and imposing. However, once you notice the coffins attached to their surface, the entire landscape begins to feel even more unsettling. What makes Sagada so remarkable is not only the tradition itself, but also the setting in which it continues to be remembered. This is not a wide-open plain where burial is simple and safe. Instead, it is a rugged mountain environment of stone walls, forested slopes, and narrow paths. As a result, the cliffs do not just serve as a backdrop. They become part of the ritual, part of the memory, and part of the danger. According to local tradition, hanging the coffins high above the earth was a way of keeping the dead closer to the spirits and farther from disturbance below. Therefore, death in Sagada was never separated from height, effort, and exposure. Raising a coffin onto the cliff required both physical strength and careful coordination. Families had to use ropes, ladders, and sheer determination to place the dead in such an extreme resting place. In other words, even the act of burial demanded courage. Meanwhile, the coffins themselves add to the eerie power of the place. Some are small and weathered, darkened by time and rain. Others seem to blend into the limestone as though the mountain has slowly absorbed them. From below, they appear suspended between earth and sky, neither fully hidden nor fully within reach. That visual alone is enough to make Sagada unforgettable. Yet, the tradition also reveals something deeper about the people who lived here. In a harsh mountain environment, they created a burial practice that matched the land around them. Rather than choosing the easiest path, they followed one shaped by belief, landscape, and endurance. That is why Sagada belongs on this list. it is not only a beautiful mountain village. It is a place where the cliffs themselves became part of human ritual, and where even in death people remained tied to the dangerous heights that defined their world. Kampong Phluk. If Makoko shows what it means to live on water every day, Kampong Phluk reveals what happens when an entire village must adjust itself to the rise and fall of nature year after year. Located near Cambodia's Tonle Sap Lake, Kampong Phluk is a stilt village built for a world that never stays still. At first glance, the houses look unusually tall, lifted high above the ground on long wooden poles. However, those towering stilts are not for style or appearance. They are a direct response to the lake's dramatic seasonal changes. During the dry season, the space beneath the homes can look like open land, with wooden posts standing far above dusty ground. Then, when the wet season arrives, the water rises so high that boats can pass directly below the houses. As a result, the village seems to transform into an entirely different place. That is what makes Kampong Phluk so remarkable. It is not simply a village built near water. Instead, it is a village built for water, shaped by it, and forced to move with its rhythm. Roads and footpaths that seem ordinary at one time of year can later disappear beneath the flood. In other words, the layout of daily life is never fully fixed. Because of this, boats become essential. They are not just useful for fishing or transport across the lake. Rather, they are part of the village's basic survival. People use them to travel between homes, move goods, and during the high water season reach schools and markets. Meanwhile, the houses remain suspended above it all, waiting for the water to rise beneath them. Even so, there is nothing easy about life here. The environment is unpredictable, the ground is unreliable, and the community must remain flexible at all times. Yet, that is exactly why Kampong Phluk belongs on this list. It stands in a place where the boundary between land and water is never permanent. And still people have managed to build homes routines and a sense of permanence in a landscape defined by change. Batanes. At the northern edge of the Philippines, the Batanes Islands stand exposed to the full force of the Pacific. This is a place of wide grass-covered hills, steep coastal cliffs, and powerful winds that seem to never fully rest. The landscape looks open and beautiful from a distance. Yet that same openness leaves the villages with very little protection when storms roll in from the sea. What makes Batanes so remarkable is the way its people learn to build against that reality. The traditional Ivatan houses are made with thick stone walls, low roofs, and small windows, all designed to resist strong winds and heavy rain. These are not houses shaped mainly by style or decoration. Instead, they are houses shaped by survival. Every part of their design reflects the need to endure a harsh coastal environment where weather can become dangerous very quickly. That relationship between people and nature defines the entire setting. The islands sit far from the larger landmasses of the Philippines, which adds to the sense of isolation. Meanwhile, the sea is always close, and the weather is always a serious presence. The winds are strong enough to influence the architecture, the rhythm of daily life, and even the shape of the landscape itself. As a result, life in Batanes has always required caution, resilience, and a deep respect for the environment. Even so, the villagers do not feel defeated by the elements. They feel prepared for them. Stone homes stand firmly against the hills, and generations of Ivatan families have continued their way of life in a place where many others would hesitate to settle at all. That is why Batanes deserves its place on this list. It is not dangerous because of one dramatic cliff or one shocking tradition, but because the entire region lives under the constant pressure of windstorm and isolation. And yet, through strong design and stronger endurance, people have turned that exposed edge of the ocean into a lasting home. These villages exist in places that seem to reject human life. Some rise above water, some cling to cliffs. Others endure freezing ground, thin air, violent storms, or traditions shaped by death itself. And yet none of them disappeared. Instead, people adapted. They built differently, lived differently, and found ways to survive where survival should have been impossible. That is what makes these places so extraordinary. They are not just dangerous villages in remote parts of the world. They are proof that human endurance can take root almost anywhere, even in landscapes that seem completely beyond the limits of ordinary life.